All right, welcome to our second Somatics and Support call. This is just a chance for me to share some somatic practices that I use, that I love, and also share my knowledge and wisdom with you guys. I've been recovered for over a year. I've been coaching actually for longer than that. And so I've seen a lot of the challenges that come with chronic illness recovery and nervous system work. So I'm happy to just support you guys in the questions that you have. So we'll do a somatic practice first, and then I'll open it up to questions in the chat. And yeah, we'll go from there. So today I would like to share some of the kind of quick tool somatic practices that I used many times a day when I was kind of in the recovery phase of my illness, and I still go back to constantly. I still use these tools all the time. They're just really great to have in your back pocket. So I'm going to just share a few of those with you today. The first one is just bringing an awareness to your seat and your feet. So whether you're laying down or you're sitting right now, noticing what are my feet touching. Maybe you want to put your feet flat on the floor if you are sitting, and just feel that contact. Is it hard? Is it soft? Is it warm or cool? Just noticing the pressure, temperature, the sensations here. Especially on the soles of the feet. If you're laying down, maybe you want to bend your knees so you have that contact between your feet and the bed. And then bringing awareness to your seat. Noticing your bum, the tops of your thighs, the place where your butt meets the chair, or the bed or the couch, wherever you happen to be sitting. And what is that contact like? Are you sinking into the surface? Is it a hard surface? Is it warm or cool? And I also like to shift my weight a little bit, so you might lean forward and then back, or just lean a little bit to one side and then the other side. Just noticing how those sensations change. Maybe more pressure on one sit bone and then another. And then finding your way back into the center, wherever center feels right to you today. So that's the first one, pretty simple. Awareness on the feet and the seat. Next, we're going to do a physiological sigh. So this is a breath practice where you breathe in and then sniff at the top before a slow exhale. So if you want to do that with me, we're going to breathe in through the nose and a quick sniff, and then slowly let it out. I like to breathe out through the mouth, often with sort of a pursed lip so that breath is nice and slow. And then when you're ready, just breathing in again. Normal breath in through the nose, and then a quick sniff, and breathing out nice and slow through the nose or through the mouth. I'm going to guide a couple more, breathing in through the nose, sniff, and slow exhale out. Feeling your shoulders drop as you breathe out. Again, breathing in through the nose, quick sniff, and breathing out, letting your body relax with this exhale. I'll let you do a couple more in your own pace and rhythm. Just same formula, in through the nose, sniff, and slow exhale. That's a really, really simple breath practice that actually mimics what our bodies naturally do to release stress. So it can be very effective for releasing stress. I also love to do it if I'm having trouble sleeping. I'm just laying in bed. It's an easy thing to do in bed. Out in public, a lot of times, no one's going to notice if you're doing this. So it can be a good thing to do kind of as a sneaky somatics. And it's also a good interruption when you are having worried thoughts, fearful thoughts, ruminating thoughts. It can be a good little like reset for your brain to just focus on this for several cycles of breath. So that's another tool that I still use all the time. Another one I use all the time still is an eye stretch neck release. So as you probably know, the vagus nerve runs down through the neck by the throat. And these muscles, these scalene muscles in the neck tend to get very tight. And that corresponds with some stress in the vagus nerve. So we can release both at the same time, which is kind of a nice little 2-for-1. There's a few different ways to do this. I'm going to show you how I typically do it, which is to bring one ear to my shoulder, so tilting the head to the side, and then keeping your chin in the same position. You're going to look up and then away from that shoulder. So you're just looking out of the corner of your eyes away from the shoulder that your ear is near. You're just going to hold this for 30 to 60 seconds. Ideally until you get a yawn, a sigh, or some other release from your body. And you'll often feel that this ear gets closer to the shoulder when that release happens. There was my yawn. You probably saw my head drop if you were watching. I'm going to do the other side. So whenever you're ready, you can do the other ear to the shoulder, look up, and then look away. This should not feel uncomfortable. You don't need to look the absolute furthest that you possibly could. You're literally just away from the shoulder, out of the corner of the eye. And you might just turn your head a little bit and just feel how much more freedom you have in the neck after doing that. I probably should have had you guys do it, turn your head first before we did the release and then again afterwards, because it can be pretty surprising how much tension you don't realize you're holding in the neck until you actually release it. It's like, oh wow. So you can also do that without tipping your head and just keeping your chin straight on, looking out of the corners of your eye, if you prefer to do it that way. What else do I want to share today? I think let's finish up with just a little ear massage. So the vagus nerve, as I mentioned, runs down the neck, also comes very close to the skin around our ears. So it's another place that we kind of inadvertently collect tension, and we can release the tension and tone the vagus nerve at the same time by working with the ears. And it also feels really good. So if you want to just start massaging your ears, it doesn't have to be anything in particular, just feeling whatever feels good for you today. Moving the cartilage, moving the skin around the ears. And there are a few places that I particularly like to work with on this. Just a general ear massage is great, but I'm going to show you kind of a 3-step process that I like to do that's very effective. The first step is to massage this little nook of the ear, if you will, in between this curve and this curve right here. Hopefully you can see that. So we're just going to take our fingertips and press them gently on the insides of this part of the ear, and we're going to make little circles. And we're just moving the ear, we're just moving the skin over the bone. We're not trying to like apply any pressure into the skull at all. Just making nice gentle circles. And I usually make about 60 of these little circles. I might go a little faster today, but you also might notice your body giving you a sigh or a yawn. You might get stomach gurgles. You might notice a sense of relaxation. And if you don't, that's also totally fine. It's still very effective. Okay, the second spot is just directly inside the ear canal, just at the very outer opening of the ear canal, and we're gonna do some circles here as well. So again, we're not trying to stick the finger in the ear, it's just to move the skin over that opening. You can do one ear at a time. I usually like to do both. This one always feels really nice to me. And then lastly, I like to put my pinky over the very top of my ear, the pointer finger right behind the earlobe, and then the other fingers are going to spread out in between. So I'm just cupping right behind the ear. And we're going to do little circles again with the fingers. So just spreading the fingers out and moving the skin over the bone, just enough pressure to traction the skin behind the ear. And again, I typically do this for about a minute. A minute for each of those 3 positions. All right, and then let's just rub the hands together, get a little warmth, get a little energy here. And brushing that over the face, just giving your face a nice little gentle rub. All right. So those are a few little quick somatic tools that tone the vagus nerve, that release stress, and work on regulating the nervous system. I love to have these little quick, like 1 to 3 minute things that I can grab at any moment. And I don't really think you can do them too much. So, you know, as often as you want throughout the day, just doing a little practice here is really beneficial to the nervous system and the vagus nerve. All right, so that was our somatic practice, and I would love to open up now to questions. So if you want to drop your question in the chat, I will respond to those. And if you would rather explain your question out loud, then just let me know that as well. That's totally fine. I also, I did get a question from someone over email, so I might start with that one while you guys who are on live kind of formulate what you would like to ask. So I got a question from someone who says, I'm trying all kinds of somatic exercises, but I haven't found many that help yet with regulating. How many times to try an exercise before you know it's working for you? So this is a really good question. It's something that I address somewhat in my free Decode Your Nervous System little mini masterclass that's at the top of my website. If you haven't done that yet, I would definitely recommend it. I have a few of these and other somatic tools in there, as well as kind of a deeper explanation as to what's going on when we are dysregulated and how to identify that, how to work with that. But one thing that I kind of mention in there is these cues that our body gives us to let us know that we're regulating, that we're releasing stress. And I've mentioned several on this call already today: yawning, sighing, spontaneous deep breath, stomach gurgles, a feeling of relaxation, becoming more aware of your body in different ways. It can also be a feeling of lightness, a feeling of ease. What else? Often another one is tears, noticing eyes watering, saliva in the mouth, sometimes burping, other indications that the digestive system is active. Yeah, there may be others, maybe other ones that you notice for yourself, but those are kind of some of the main indicators that the nervous system is switching over into that parasympathetic rest and digest state. And so there are actual physical signs and physical cues that you can look for when you're doing somatic practice that show you, oh, my body's getting the message here. It's understanding that it's time to release some stress, and it's getting a sense of safety and of safety to do that. So that would be one thing to look at. We also get cues from our thoughts and our emotions. So you might notice that you feel a sense of peace, or feel more optimistic, or maybe just slightly less pessimistic, or just like a lighter mood, more of a sense of ease, reduction in feelings of urgency, reduction in feelings of like apathy, just feeling more present if you were a bit disassociated before. Also thoughts, you might notice that, oh, my thoughts have slowed down a little bit if they were racing before, or I feel a little more present, more like awareness of my thoughts. So those are different signs, whether it's, a physical sign, mental or emotional sign. Also with that master class, the free class that I just mentioned, there's a PDF handout that kind of gives you a few cues, physical and emotional cues of the different states. So you might just look at those different states and notice, okay, where do I feel like I'm at before I do this practice? And then where am I at after this practice? How have I shifted at all? Maybe I don't feel like completely great and peaceful and wonderful after the practice, but I feel a little bit less angry or a little bit less stressed. We're not, especially at first, I would not expect that doing a somatic practice for 5 minutes or even 20 minutes is going to completely shift your state and the rest of the day you feel amazing. That's not how this works. It is very slowly repatterning your default nervous system programs. Essentially, your nervous system is used to running a particular threat program, and that may show up for you as a fight or flight, or it may show up for you more as a collapse state. So we're gently challenging that program and kind of teaching the nervous system, hey, there's this other thing we could be doing: healing, resting, relaxing. So any little move of the needle at all, or any little cue from your body at all, is a sign that that is a good somatic practice for you. You might not get any sign at all at first, so I would definitely encourage sticking with the somatic practice as long as you enjoy it. If you hate it, then don't do it, obviously. But as long as it's something that you enjoy or don't mind doing, sticking with it at least for a week or two of daily practice. And at the end of that time, if you're like, is this just not really landing for me? Nothing is really responding. That's fine. There are like there are hundreds of somatic practices that you could do. So just, play around with the different ones that you enjoy, that you find the most pleasant, most interesting. Keep with them for a period of time, at least a couple weeks, and then hone in from there of like, oh, I really feel like the body scan is where I notice the most difference, or I really feel like these vagal tone ones are the ones that I notice the most difference. So then keep going with those. Okay, hopefully that answers that question. And I'm going to go to the chat here. Tips on expansion for the last 20% of recovery. Yeah, great question. So the last 20% of recovery for me went pretty fast. It was the getting to that point that was slow and a bit arduous at times. But so for the last 20% or so, I would say that it's a little bit of experimentation and just being really open to, I wonder what's going to happen if I do this thing that I haven't done in a long time, or this thing that's a little bit outside of what I normally do. So just to use an example that's very straightforward and obvious, with walking, it took me like most of a year to work up from walking not even half a block to walking about like close to 2 miles just around my neighborhood. But once I was walking 2 miles, I was like, that's pretty good. Like 2 mile walk is pretty solid, right? For, exercise purposes. So then I thought, well, maybe I'll go for a little hike. Maybe I'll go somewhere that has some hills and it's a little more challenging. Maybe I won't do 2 miles there, but like 1.5 miles or something, get some hills in, get out in the woods, try it out. That went great. So I was like, okay, maybe let's do a couple miles out in the woods with some hills. That also went great. Okay, maybe I could go for 3 miles. And then I kind of I stepped it up faster, because when you're first beginning, you have to increase pretty slowly. But when you get to that point where you're like, all right, I'm pretty close to like a normal activity level for someone who's maybe very out of shape, hasn't been exercising for a long time. What might it feel like to do this? For me, I love hiking, so for me it's all about hiking, but for you it might be something different. Like, what might it feel like to go to the gym? And maybe I'm not going to do like a full gym class, but I'll go to my favorite weight machines and I'll just do a few reps and see what it feels like. So holding that kind of loosely, like an experiment, and trusting that your body can handle it if you do have any kind of symptoms that flare up, but also like not expecting that, because you probably won't have an issue as long as you're going kind of, I don't want to say slowly, but as long as you're listening to your body, which at this point, I think, if you've already gotten to that 20% level, you're probably pretty good at listening to your body at this point. So yeah, trying out some different things, see how it feels, and don't quit the practices that helped you get to this point just because you don't need them quite as much, continuing on with, you know, the somatics, celebrating each little thing that you do, really being kind to your nervous system, being kind to yourself, all of those things are still really important at that level. Following your joy and your authenticity is another thing that I think sometimes, you know, we don't really think about, but really allowing your joy and your authentic truth to guide you rather than trying to push yourself into, I've got to get back to work, or I've got to get back to this or that or the other thing. I know that was a little bit general, and you may have more specific questions, Elspeth, on that. So feel free to clarify if you want to. But hopefully that was helpful. Okay, and then another question here in the chat. I'm wondering if there are certain cases where it's appropriate to work on the nervous system for a while before starting to work on expanding. I feel like my body is calling for that right now, to work on building resilience over expansion at this time. Curious what your thoughts are on this. Yes, we can't expand from a place of instability. So that is the first step. People talk about expansion all the time because that's how you get out of the illness, right? That's how you get back to full function again. But if you try to start that when you're not actually ready for it, if you try to start it too early and you're still having major flares all the time, you're still like super dysregulated, obviously we're not going to wait until, you don't need to wait to expand until you don't have any symptoms. That's not a realistic goal. You don't need to wait to expand until you like feel calm and parasympathetic all the time either. That's not realistic. My litmus test for whether or not you're ready to expand is, do you have some level of stability and predictability in your day-to-day world, right? So if you feel like I can't make plans because I never know how I'm going to feel from one day to the next, I might be able to go for a picnic and a long walk, or I might be stuck in bed. That's a sign to me that you're in a push and crash and you're not ready to expand yet until you find your baseline. Another litmus test for are you ready to expand is, do I have tools for when I have a big symptom day, or if I have a lot of sensations, or if I have a lot of big emotions, if I'm feeling activated, do I have helpful ways to respond to that really work for me? That, you know, some kind of practice of acceptance, of self-love, self-care, and somatic, some way to kind of weather that storm without it completely knocking you into that place of, am I ever going to recover? Why did I think I could do this? Beating myself up about it. All those kinds of things. Not that we never go into that, because it is unavoidable to some degree, but you have tools to pull yourself out and to bring yourself back to a more centered and grounded place, even in the midst of symptoms and emotions and all of that. So if you have those two things in place, then you probably can start expanding. The one other exception to that is if your day-to-day life is already at or over your max capacity. So for example, if you are still needing to work at a level that you know is probably too much for where your body is actually at, or if you have people that you're caring for maybe, or some other responsibility that your activity level is already like at or above what your body is actually able to handle, and you'll know this because you're having intense symptoms. Maybe you go to work and you come home and just crash. Then that would not be a good time to expand because you've got no room, right? There's no space for expansion. So what expansion is going to look like for you in that situation is creating more resilience and capacity for what is already going on, so that level of activity is not blowing you out as much. Do you need to stop that level of activity? Maybe. It depends. I know that this is tough because especially where I live in America, we don't always have a way to, pay our rent if we're not working. So you may not be able to stop working, and you may not need to, but probably something's going to need to give, whether that's okay, what else can I take off my plate? Maybe there's some chores around the house that either don't need to get done or I could get some help with. Or maybe I still need to work, but I can work with my doctor and get a letter of accommodation that I need to get a break every couple hours, and I can do my regulating practices on my break. So that's not to say that like you can't recover, you can't expand if you're stuck in a situation where you have to max out your capacity, but it's going to be a lot harder. So if you have the ability to pull back to a point where you have a bit more ease and a bit more stability in your life, and you're not having to like push to that level constantly, then it's going to be a lot easier for you to reach that state of stability as I was talking about, and then expand from there. But it's definitely possible to do in both scenarios. It's just a little more tricky. But coming back to your question, Sophia, if your body is calling for you to build resilience and you're feeling like, I just want to stay, with this level of activity and work on feeling more spacious with that, feeling like I have lots of capacity for that, and I maybe even have a little extra energy, like wouldn't that be lovely? Then I think that's a great place to be. And when you're feeling ready to expand and your body tells you to, that you'll be in an even better position to make progress with that. I like to use like a bank account metaphor for expansion, and I know that a lot of people use spoon theory, which I think is absolutely genius. But when it comes to expansion, it's not quite as helpful. I really like spoon theory for figuring out pacing. But then when we don't necessarily want to stay in the pacing phase forever, we'd like to do more ideally eventually. And so I like to use the metaphor of a bank account, where if you have money in the bank, you're getting paid a certain amount daily, and you spend more than the amount in your bank, you're going to get an overdraft fee, right? And so you're going to get that hit the next day, and you're going to have to repay that with whatever you get paid. But if you leave a little cushion, you don't use all of your energy, you don't use all that money in the bank account that day, you leave yourself a little cushion, then you've got more than you could maybe use for something next time. And then adding onto this analogy, if you keep saving that little bit of extra, then you can invest it. Then you can take that money and put it in an account that actually gets returns. And what that looks like in recovery is using some energy on things that are very helpful and very impactful towards your recovery, such as a great morning routine, where maybe you get outside in the morning and you get the sunlight on your face and you do some stretching. Like that would be an amazing investment to make in your recovery. Or similarly, a great bedtime routine, or a meditation practice, or doing these somatic practices more often. That's a way that you can invest energy. Another one is on like eating good food. Maybe you invest some of that energy in like making yourself a really lovely, healthy pot of soup that you can eat all week. Things like that that are supporting your body, supporting your healing and recovery can be, you can think of it as like an investment. And this is also a good way to think about pacing as I'm giving myself, my future self, a gift of this extra energy rather than using it all up today on, you know, this long to-do list that I feel like has to get done. So that's a little beyond the question that you asked, but feel free to, you know, put any clarifications in the chat if you want. What other questions are coming up? You can put a question in the chat, or you can raise your hand if you want to say it out loud, with just the caveat I mentioned earlier that this is going on YouTube. So if you speak, your video screen will be recorded. And I got a question in the chat here. That was a really interesting comment to Sophia's questions. Is it normal, okay, to have fluctuations well within your baseline? Like you mentioned, a bigger symptom day. How to know when those are adding up to it being too much? Yeah, it is normal to have fluctuations within your baseline, and that is totally okay. It doesn't mean that I feel the same every day, but generally speaking, I have a good idea of what can I do in a day, what are my symptom levels likely to be from day to day, within a range. You know, it's always going to be within a range, and that range may be quite high. Those symptoms may be quite intense. That doesn't mean necessarily that you're not at a baseline, but I think you know when you're in like a dip or a crash, like you know when the symptoms are more intense, and that's going to happen because maybe there was an intense emotional day that you got some news that was difficult or something like that, or you had an argument with somebody that can often cause a little symptom flare, or maybe you needed to run some errands that you don't normally run and that didn't feel safe to your nervous system, so that caused a little symptom flare. That's not to say that you're out of your baseline just because you're having some reactions to kind of the day-to-day fluctuations of life, shall we call it, because life keeps on lifing. Even if we try to control every aspect of it and make every day exactly the same, that's just never actually going to happen. So it is completely expected to have some days that are bigger symptom days, and we just have to ride those out. The issue comes when it's like those days are happening a lot, they're happening very unpredictably, they're very intense, or lasting for a very long time, like multiple weeks. Then I would start to ask, okay, what do I need to do differently? How can I create a little bit more stability for myself, either with what I'm doing, what I'm surrounding myself with, or supporting myself with maybe some more regulating practices. That's also a good time to reach out for coaching. I offer one-on-one coaching. There's also lots of other great coaches out there. So how to know when those add up to it being too much? Anytime you have a big symptom day, it's gonna feel like too much. Your brain is gonna start to play tricks on you, because your nervous system is in a threat state, and it's gonna try to tell you, this means we're getting worse, this is not okay, everything is terrible, blah, blah, blah. So you have to just kind of know that that's one of the symptoms. your brain, having a little freak out is one of the symptoms of these nervous system flares. But if that is lasting for, a week or more, or if you feel like I just can't even make plans because I don't know what I'm going to be able to do from one day to the next, and I'm having, such unpredictable symptoms, or if you reliably crash, every evening or every weekend after you're working all week, or, if you have these kind of push days and crash days, then that's also something I would look at, trying to even that out and getting a little more stability. It's nuanced, you're gonna have to feel it out for yourself. I did do some tracking. I'm a little agnostic on tracking. I think for some people it can be very helpful, and for others it can be very triggering. But if you're really struggling with this, if you're really having a hard time with, what's my baseline, am I at baseline, what do I need to do more of or less of, then tracking can be helpful. And the way I recommend tracking is very specific. You just give yourself a number at the end of the day. Just jot it down, number 1 to 10. And this could be either 1 to 10 on able to do lots of stuff, feeling great, could be a 10, or worst symptoms ever, I feel like I'm dying, is a 10. So you can choose which scale you wanna do. But when you first sit down to do this, write down each of those numbers 1 through 10 and what they mean for you. Because what it means for me, what a 10 means for me might be different than what a 10 means for you. But a 10, the way I did it was like a 10 was like the worst symptoms that I'd had. And a 1 was, I feel fine, like I feel normal, like a normal, totally healthy person. And I kind of broke it down in between that because you want to have a little bit of objectivity to this. You want to be able to go back to that list and be like, oh, right, that's what a 10 was to me 2 months ago. And I haven't even like come close to that in weeks. So, because your idea of how well you're doing is going to change as you start to feel better. You're going to still think like, oh, I'm not where I want to be, so I must be a 5. And then you look back to what a 5 was 3 months ago, and it's completely like the worst that you've gotten in weeks. So just defining those numbers for yourself, and then just give yourself one number, one time a day. That's it. And you don't need to think about it other than that. And then after a few weeks, you come back and you look at your list and you're like, okay, yeah, I'm mostly between like 4 to a 6, or gosh, my numbers seem to be getting higher. Maybe I need to think about doing something differently, or wow, actually my numbers are getting lower. Okay, I'm in a good place. So again, tracking, very optional. Most people can manage this without tracking, but if you're struggling with baseline, tracking is a great tool to bring in. Okay. So, question about my experience hiking and how I use somatic tools to stay regulated during challenging times. So a lot of you know that I just got back from the Tahoe Rim Trail, which is a 175-mile trail around Lake Tahoe in Northern California and Nevada. I completed 155 miles of it. I had to sit out for 20 miles because I had some major foot pain. It was so hard, you guys. It was so hard. I knew it was going to be hard, but it was like the hardest thing I've ever done on purpose. Yeah, thanks for celebrating with me. I'm so proud of myself. There were definitely times where I had to remind myself like, okay, this is really hard, but I have done way harder things, because recovering from CFS is by far the hardest thing that most people will ever do. But yeah, it was really challenging. And really, really beautiful. Like, unbelievable scenery, fields of wildflowers. I saw a baby bear, I saw marmots, lots of really cool birds, just amazing mountains, mountain scenery and little lakes that are like otherworldly. And yeah, it was really amazing. I also learned about myself that through hiking might not be my thing. I might be more of a like 5 to 10 mile a day backpacker rather than a 10 to 17 mile a day backpacker. And that's fine. That's a good thing to learn before setting out on something like the PCT. So yeah, I feel good about the trip. I am waiting to speak to a podiatrist because I think I messed up my feet pretty badly on this one. But I trust my body to be able to handle whatever comes. Yeah, and then as far as somatic tools to stay regulated, I think you came in late, Brooke, so you didn't see this, but we did several quick somatic tools at the beginning of this call, and I still go to those constantly. I reach for that, physiological sigh or the eye stretches daily, basically. So I was definitely using that. I did also, I used a lot of the tools that I use for those hard days, for those kind of tough symptom days when I just didn't want to be hiking anymore and we still had a lot of miles to cover. Then I listened to music. I sang little songs to myself. If you've been in a class with me, then there's lots of little songs that I love to sing and share that are really uplifting and encouraging. So I sang those to myself, to my hiking buddies, to help them as well. I thought about my clients a lot, honestly. I thought about, the things that I was excited to share with you guys and the things I was looking forward to in this class that I'm running right now. I also, it was actually, I used a lot of somatics, but I was also really thinking about the 5 keys. So I know a couple of you have been through my 5 keys program. The 5 keys of healing are surrender, rest, care, adapt, and hope. And I think I'm going to do a little series maybe on Instagram or something about how each of these keys showed up for me during this hike. Surrender to the miles, just like one foot in front of the other. This is what we're doing. Like just not creating secondary suffering of what did I get myself into? How many miles are left? Do we have to go up? How many hills? How long is this uphill going to last? Just surrendering into just one foot in front of the other, looking around, noticing what I can notice in my present environment. Oh, look, there's this gorgeous flower. Oh, I can hear this bird singing. And those are all tools that I used in recovery and that I teach in the class. Rest, realizing that I needed a rest day. That was hard. I really wanted to do, all the miles of the trail, but at a certain point I realized that everything in me was just saying it's time to rest, and my feet in particular really needed the rest. And so I took a day to rest. I didn't hike really at all that day, and I felt so much better the next day. So remembering that you can rest, that rest time, giving yourself full permission to rest, is so powerful, and that you don't necessarily have to wait until your body forces you to rest to take that rest. Caring for myself, caring for the folks on the hike with me, caring for my feet the best that I could. I literally taped them up with duct tape. What's the next key? Surrender, rest, care, adapt, and hope. Yeah, adapting. So like trying to figure out, okay, what can I do differently through each phase of the hike? How do I need to adjust things? I was able to, drop some gear off at one point, pick up some more gear, just all those little changes that you can make, and then adapting to your body will adapt, to what you're doing. Like my circadian rhythm just dropped right into the sun schedule, being outside for that long. I usually sleep like crap when I'm backpacking, but I slept great after hiking, 12, 15 miles. So my body figured out how to live outside, how to hike for that many miles a day. My legs just got super strong. So the body's adapting to whatever you're doing, whatever you put in front of it. Basically, it's going to feel challenging at first, and then pretty soon it just feels normal, which is pretty cool. And then hope. The hope key is also important. So just noticing, what can I hope for? What do I feel excited about? Focusing on just the next little goal of getting to that lake for lunch, getting to the top of this mountain, checking out the view, those little incremental goals. And then I think you can see how this translates into recovery as well, hopefully. But yeah, so I was really thinking a lot about the 5 keys, and I'm excited to be offering that again soon. Yeah, I will be offering it again. My goal is to start the class in late September, which means I'm going to offer a free workshop about the 5 keys. And believe me, I think several of you have done the workshop. It is not just a sales pitch. This is very in-depth on each of the 5 keys with tools that you can take and use right away, whether or not you sign up for the full class. So that workshop is going to be in probably early or mid-September. And I will, if you're on my email list, obviously you'll get information about that. Anywhere that you found out about this call, I will be, starting to promote that soon and get the registration open. Yeah, and I would love to have folks in that class. I think it's based on the major mind shift that I had that was where the trajectory of my illness turned around. So without going too much into it, just there is this kind of magic mindset of recovery where you can fully accept where you're at right now and also be completely dedicated to improving and recovering. So that's kind of that's what I'm trying to create in this 5 keys class. But of course it's one thing to say that, and it's another thing to actually feel it and believe it all the way down deep in your soul. And then of course there's lots of somatics, there's lots of singing, there's lots of journaling and visualization and other tools in the program. But yeah, I'll go into that more in the workshop. I definitely would recommend coming to the workshop, and I have kind of an assessment for each of the 5 keys so you can see where you're at with each of them and what you might want to start working on. All right, I see one more question in the chat here. Do you recommend doing somatics throughout the day in small increments instead of overdoing a larger session? And does this help retrain the default nervous system stay more effectively? Yes, I do, actually. That is how I suggest approaching it, is several times throughout the day doing a somatic practice. And maybe sometimes it's that, one of those 2-minute things that I led earlier. And ideally one of those should be a longer practice, like a body scan meditation, a grounding meditation, something like that. And yeah, the more frequently is, to my mind, better than doing like an hour once a week, or one longer thing a day and then the rest of the day completely ignoring it. Great question. All right, well, that's pretty much our time here. Any last questions or thoughts or things that folks want to chime in with? I'm not sure exactly when the next one of these is going to be. It'll probably be on a Wednesday, either in the morning or the evening, possibly next Wednesday or maybe the week after. But However you got the info for this call today, you will get an update for, the next one. If you're watching this on a recording on YouTube, I will put the sign up link to join us live next time, get your questions answered in the comments below. I'd love to have you join us. And yeah, all right, thanks everybody. Have a great rest of your day.